The Majority Leader.
I ask unanimous consent to call the quorum be terminated.
Without objection.
Mr. President, it's been a long week, and our list of accomplishments on paper are not very much. But hopefully, we're headed toward a real good week next week. Mr. President, I ask unanimous consent that all pending amendments be withdrawn except the substitute and the Feingold Amendment number 3909, that it be modified with the changes at the desk and then agreed to. And the motion to reconsider be laid on the table. Further, that the following be the only first-degree amendments remaining in order to this bill, with no second-degree amendments prior to a vote, except as specified in this agreement, that any time for debate with respect to the amendments be equally divided and controlled in the usual form. That the following two amendments be modified with the changes that are at the desk, and then agreed to as modified, and the motion to reconsider be laid upon the table en bloc. White House Amendment number 3932, Kennedy Amendment number 3960, and that the Bond Amendment number 3945 be agreed to without modification. Further, that the following 8 amendments be subject to a majority vote threshold, with a motion to table any of these 8 amendments in order. Bond Amendment number 3941 with a modification 20 minutes. Bond Amendment number 3938 with a modification 20 minutes. Feingold Amendment number 3907, 2 hours. Specter White House number 3927, 2 hours. Feingold Amendment number 3913, 40 minutes. Feingold Amendment number 3912, 40 minutes. Feingold Amendment number 3915, 40 minutes. Feingold Webb Amendment regarding sequestration, 90 minutes. Provided further that the next 3 amendments listed be subject to a 60 affirmative vote threshold, and that if it does not achieve that threshold, then the amendment be withdrawn. Feinstein Amendment number 3919, 2 hours. Cardin Amendment number 3930, 60 minutes. White House Amendment number 3920, 60 minutes. And finally, the Feinstein Amendment number 3910 also be in order without any debate limitation. Provided further that a manager's amendment be in order if cleared by the managers and the leaders. Upon disposition of all amendments, the substitute amendment as amended be agreed to, and the bill be read a 3rd time, and the Senate then vote on the motion and vote cloture on the bill. That upon passage of the bill, the Senate then proceed to calendar number 517, H.R. 3773, that all after the enacting clause be stricken and the text of S. 2248 as amended be inserted in lieu thereof, that be advanced to 3rd reading, passed, the motion to reconsider be laid on the table, the passage of S. 2248 be vitiated, and then returned to the calendar.
Is there objection? Without objection, it shall all be so.
Mr. President, let me express on the record my appreciation for so many people. Specifically, I want to mention Senator Rockefeller and Senator Bond, who and their staffs have spent days on this. It is really good that they have the relationship that they've been able to do this, but for that it could not have been done. And then I'm not going to talk about Republican senators because I'm sure there are a lot of unsung heroes there. I can't talk about those. But the presiding officer, Senator Whitehouse, has done a remarkably good job as a member of the Intelligence Committee and the Judiciary Committee in helping us resolve this matter, that we can now proceed to finish it. As I add all this time up, there's about 11 hours of debate, plus the votes. Senator Kennedy, he is also always very easy to deal with. He believes fervently in what he believes in, but he's always very understanding of my problems, and I extend my appreciation to him. Senator Feingold, who is really a brilliant man, and he is someone who's always looking at every bit of verbiage in any piece of legislation, and he has been very, very good to work with, as he always is, and I express my appreciation to him. Senator Cardin has been very patient in everything we've done. And finally, Mr. President, I want to talk about 2 people. I spent a lot of time today with Senator Feinstein. She is a real believer as a member of that Intelligence Committee. She's the 2nd ranking member in that committee, and she spends days of her life in committee hearings, listening to what goes on and trying to figure out what is going on, which isn't always easy. It's all done with all the intelligence members, away from the press, and there's little recognition that members of the intelligence are going to get other than self-satisfaction that they're doing good things for the country and to the world. And so I appreciate Senator Feinstein working with us so that we got to this final agreement. And even though his name does not appear in any of the consent agreement that I read, Senator Leahy, he is a person who is going to accomplish what he believes should be accomplished in this bill. But he's done it in a typical way. I had one senator tell me, in fact, it was Senator Kent Conrad. He said in his entire public service he has never known a better negotiator than Senator Leahy. And I think that's probably, he is one of the best. But he got a lot out of this, even though his name doesn't appear anyplace. And, Mr. President, we know the sincerity and the depth of feelings that Senator Dodd has in this. And he is somebody who has been heavily involved in everything that we have done in this bill. And I appreciate his willingness to work with us to a point here. He and I agree on what should happen in this legislation. Time will only tell whether we get what our druthers are, but at least we are joined to try to accomplish the same thing. So I appreciate everyone working as they have with this legislation. It hasn't been easy to get to where we are, but this is where we are, and I appreciate everyone's attention and help. Mr. President, I ask the Chair to lay before the Senate a message from the House with respect to H.R. 4253, which is Small Business Veterans Military Reservists legislation.
The clerk will report.
Resolved that the House agree to the amendment of the Senate to the bill H.R. 4253, entitled An Act to Improve and Expand Small Business Assistance Programs for Veterans of the Armed Forces and Military Reservists and for other purposes, with an amendment.
Without objection, the Senate will proceed to the measure.
I ask consent the Senate concur in the House amendment to the Senate amendment and the motion to reconsider be laid on the table.
Without objection.
I ask unanimous consent that the appointment at the desk appear separately in the record as if made by the Chair.
Without objection.
Mr. President, I ask consent that when the Senate completes its business today, the Senate adjourn until 2 p.m. Monday, February 4th, and that following the prayer and the pledge, the journal proceedings be approved to date, the morning hour be deemed expired, the time for the leaders be reserved for the use later in the day, and the Senate resume consideration of S. 2248, the FISA legislation.
Without objection.
Mr. President, on Monday, the Senate will resume consideration of FISA legislation. We have agreement that there will be amendments offered. The distinguished presiding officer is going to offer one at or about 2 o'clock. And at 5:30, the Senate will proceed to vote on the motion to invoke cloture on the motion to proceed H.R. 5140, the economic stimulus bill. Senators should be aware that additional votes may occur following the 5:30 cloture vote. Those votes would be in relation to the FISA legislation. I understand there may be some problems with the Republicans wanting any votes that afternoon, but we'll work on that Monday. At least we have an agreement on this legislation, and I see no reason that if we can't take a big chunk out of it on Monday, which I think we can finish it on Tuesday. So I say, Mr. President, thanks everybody for all their good work this week. And if there's no further business to come before the Senate, I ask the Senate stand adjourned under the previous order.
The Senate will stand adjourned until 2 p.m. Monday, February 4th.
This week, the Senate approved a short-term extension to parts of the FISA law, which would have expired tomorrow. The bill also grants retroactive legal immunity for telecom companies who cooperated with the government, a provision the President insisted on. When the Senate returns next week, their version of an economic stimulus package. There are several differences in the Senate version, including the addition of extended unemployment benefits and food stamp distribution. Several senators expressed disappointment that the plan did not include benefits for senior citizens who collect Social Security. Live coverage of the U.S. Senate always on C-SPAN 2.